I'm going to show you how you can make millions of dollars in real estate owning no property, and how this specific economy is nearly identical to the economy that I started my business in 7 years ago. Some of my students from the channel have nearly 400 properties, are making $5 or $7 or $8 million per year in revenue at the top end, and thousands of people are financially free. In this video, I'm going to give you the same blueprint, but with this refreshed perspective, because finally you can get started literally the same way that I got started, because the economy all over the world is very similar to my start in Houston, Texas in 2014. By the end of this video, you'll be in a position that you can start leveraging other people's properties today to start making tens of thousands of dollars per month in net profit, and then you can take that money in a year and go buy as many properties as you like in what could be the best time to buy real estate of our generation, hopefully here in the near future. So make some money today, put it in your pocket, and go buy some real estate tomorrow with this video. Let's jump in. Welcome back, YouTube world. My name is Sean Rocky Jeech. I've been teaching short-term rentals for a little over 5 years, and I have about 150 properties. And yes, that can sound like a flex, but I think it's important to understand that I've been teaching this for 5 years and I've been in it for 7. It's been a long time coming to get to this point. And I've taught a lot on this channel, but I'm going to give you something possibly new, so that way you can be better armed to make money in short-term rentals, because now is a super good time for it. And I'm going to give you some data in this video so you can have that confidence that you might need to get started in short-term rentals. Let's start in a relevant beginning, because like I told you, the economy today is very similar to how I got started, which came off the back of my homelessness. A lot of you might know that I was homeless in 2009 and then kind of used that difficult spot to start a company in 2010. 2010, I started a company in the newspaper industry, ended up in Houston, and then 2014, I had employees I was housing. So I had apartments that were furnished, but my employees were living there. A lot of them moved out, and then I had this high rise full of apartments that I needed to pay my rent on, and then that's when I put those into the Airbnb space. So Houston 2014, my first Airbnb rentals were leases that I had signed in a high rise at a property called Sky House, and those were my very first Airbnbs. Properties that I did not own. Ever since then, I've been following a very similar model to how I picked them up by accident in 2014, but of course I've learned a lot since then. At the time, Houston had a very specific economic environment where Houston was volatile. It was going through its own form of a recession. Yes, Houston can go through its own recession because it's highly connected to oil prices. All these other companies started laying off a ton of people, and the city got scared. But what happened when the city got scared is that all of the buildings that were building on good faith that Houston would have a strong economy started to slash their prices in the real estate market in order to get their buildings full. See, what happens is a building takes time to get built, right? It can take a year or two to get built. So all these high rises that were confident that they're coming into a strong market, oil turned around, next thing you know, they're slashing prices. The leases that I got when I started in Houston, I got 8 weeks of rent for free. And it's a big part of why you can start making tons of money in many cities all over the world right now, the same way that I did in Houston, because there was an article that was shared by a friend of mine. I spoke on his podcast. He shared a Yahoo article that rents are starting to backslide and landlords are scared. So the world is starting to enter into an economic sentiment that's very similar to my experience in Houston, where buildings were just freely giving away rent to anybody who would move in. Now, as cool as this is, there is some things that have slightly changed since then. Back in 2015, 2014, as I was picking up leases, none of the leases said you're not allowed to put it on Airbnb. The only thing it said is you could not sublet the property. Now, what this meant is if my LLC signed a lease, then I could put anybody in there that I wanted, because it wasn't technically a sublet, because an LLC isn't a person. So the LLC isn't subletting because we still don't have an occupant. So if you sign a lease with an LLC, you could even argue that you're not subletting because you're putting an occupant under your LLC. So your Airbnb guest is technically the occupant. But now leases have gotten smarter, and they have language that says you cannot list on lodging websites or collect money for your space. So there's some workaround. I'm going to give you that in this video too, because of course you're going to like this video, right? So if you want to get started on Airbnb the way that I got started, let me just start ripping out the blueprint for you, because I tend to suck at telling stories about my childhood or about things that I did at the grocery store today. And so the only way I can keep this video interesting is just unloading lots of value at you. So get out a pad of pen and some paper, and let's get down to brass tacks of how you can start your business. Step 1 is you should start an LLC. It's not necessary per se, but if you think about the power dynamic between you and a landlord, the landlord is an LLC that owns the home. They're going to lease to you. So forming an LLC today and starting a business through an LLC gives you some extra protections, and you can look at the landlord as an equal. So if you do it the way that I do it exactly, forming an LLC will give you protection. Now, some people still do buy properties as their investment strategy for Airbnb, but if you're looking to get started in the Airbnb space, it's much easier to acquire the amount of money necessary to do rental arbitrage, which rental arbitrage is, as I'm speaking about, getting a landlord to give you their property. Then all you have to do is buy the furniture and put it on the market, and then Airbnb will pay you more money than you'll make in rent, and that's your spread, and that's how you can do this. Now that you have your LLC, you can go to the irs.gov and get an EIN number. They'll send you that paperwork electronically in an email, you're good to go. Now, when you go to pick up a property, you're going to apply as an LLC. So there's going to be some extra stuff over the next couple of weeks as you kind of learn how this industry works. You should watch some of my other videos because you're going to want to make sure that your application can get approved. This YouTube channel is loaded with advice, including a free course. So in order to keep these steps short enough for you to digest this in under, say, 30 minutes, I highly recommend that you watch my free course on Airbnb. There's about 100 videos in there, and you can like get really, really nerdy if that's your style. Once you have an LLC, you're going to want to learn the art of influence to a light degree, and you're going to want to do some market research. If you look at Airbnb and Airbnb-ing out properties that you do not own as a business, you'll understand that getting a landlord to trust you with their property has its own level of difficulty, right? What I want you to do is I want you to think about how the market works. If a landlord owns a property, they probably have a mortgage. If they have a mortgage, that means they have a monthly payment, right? They have what we would call holding costs. Every single day that a landlord doesn't get their rent paid is a day that they pay the mortgage on their own. And that's a really sad day for a landlord. With multifamily apartments, it's a little less dramatic than a single family home. And what I mean is a single family home either has a tenant or it does not. So it's making 100% of rent or it's making 0% of rent. If a landlord goes more than 2 months without a tenant in a house, that's really scary. And this is where you can really get anybody to say yes. If they have a building that's been empty for more than 2 months, you can go to that house and say, hey, I'll rent this thing for 3 years and I won't ever leave because I'm going to make money on it. And they'll go, wow, this is great. Thank you. Sign a 3-year-long lease. Deal is done. Now with multifamily, this is where you can get free rent more easily. Not to say that it can't get done with houses. One of my students in Tampa, she got 3 months of rent-free, fully furnished home, luxury property, 5 beds on the water. And she didn't have to pay rent until month 4 and just started making money on the property. So yes, the concept still does work for a single family, but it's a little easier to grasp with multifamily. With multifamily, this building that I'm in is maybe 300 doors. If they're 85% occupied, it's going to be a lot of work to really change that number to go to 90, 95. Once a building's built and has been built for a while, their occupancy percentage can really only change through hardcore sales efforts. If you go to a multifamily building that's struggling at 85% or less occupancy, offering to sign 3 or 5 leases may be enough to really garner their interest. And that way you can tell them the type of business model that you run and that you would like to pick up 5 leases in a pretty short period of time, but in exchange, you would like to talk about lease concessions. You may not even need to ask for these concessions because they might already be in the deal. When I told you that I got 8 weeks of rent for free in Houston on my first 3 doors, I didn't ask for that. That is what they advertised as a usual thing. We started to realize this is such an important part of rental arbitrage that my employee now, because we have 150 doors, I have a person who does all of our negotiations. He always asks for 8 or 10 weeks of rent for free, and he just drives that home. And what we're noticing now in this economy, that even like all over the country, he's starting to get the deals exactly how he's asking for. 6 months ago, it was pulling teeth to get any free rent, but now landlords are doing whatever we ask. If you're in a major metro area that has a lot of new high-rises getting built, like say Austin, Texas, you might find that as the market starts to cool off, all these new build properties are going to get scared. And when they get scared, they're going to offer 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 8 weeks of rent for free. I had a high-rise building with 2-bedroom apartments, luxury property in Houston, offer me half off rent for the whole year, 6 months of rent for free for their 2-bedroom property. We still didn't take them because they wanted $5,500 a month for their 2 bedrooms, and I didn't think that it was the right time to pick up properties in Houston, and of course COVID hit and boom. What I'm saying to you is there are going to be a couple situations that a multifamily building will be willing to play ball. One is where they are chronically low on occupancy, which is where they've been around for a long time and they just can't seem to get their building up, or a building that is brand new. That's called a lease up. Now, if you have an LLC and you have your confidence, you walk in the front door, dress decently well. It doesn't have to be a full suit, but dressed respectably well where they can look at you like you're an actual business person, and you talk to them face to face, eye to eye, and have a conversation. This is much more likely to go your way than if you just call them on the phone and say, hey, I'd like to Airbnb your property. So my biggest tip for you is be a business, act like a business, and show up in person to do business. So now we need to circle back to number 3. I've slightly alluded to market research. We're looking for new build properties. That's great. Now, if you're looking to be confident in your dealings with picking up a property, like I'm going to pick up a property and I want to know that it's going to be profitable, there's a few kinds of market research that you can do for free. You don't need to sign up for any software. You don't need AirDNA. You don't need all the rooms. You don't need Mashvisor. What I do is I actually do my research on the Airbnb platform. Now, that's a 30-minute long video too, but fortunately for you, this YouTube channel is free, and I've been giving away free videos for 5 years. There are going going to be a couple videos for you to look at here and some links in my description where you can watch my videos on market research. What I'm telling my students in short, because I do have a paid course, not just the free one that I'm offering you, because I don't think you should ever pay for a course until you're making some money. And when I'm talking to these people, I'm telling them during your market research, what you're looking for is you're looking for people that you're better than. So when you're looking at Airbnb properties, you're going to be able to find which properties are making money, but you're not going to stop there. You're going to look for a bunch of properties where you can find that they're making money. But I want you to find one that you're like, you know what, this one's not very good. This property's not that nice. They just don't run their business well. If you can confidently say that, you now know that there's somebody in the market that you can beat. And the moment you can find an Airbnb listing that you can beat, that is also profitable, that's an intersection of your ability and their profitability, which means that you can then infer that you're going to be profitable too. So watch those market research videos that I do give away for free on this channel to do the market research step of what I'm teaching you here. Now, if you're actually serious about this or serious about real estate in general, where you think you might buy a multifamily one day and want to get into the short-term rental space, I really advise that you subscribe to this YouTube channel. I teach from scratch, but I also teach high level. So subscribe now, so that way you still get all of the videos that you might want to see as you're still kicking tires in this industry. You may not dive in all the way today, but it'll pay to see these videos over time. Because if you ever do attack the short-term rental market, this is the one YouTube channel that will always give you what you need to know without any fluff, without any catch, without any, other stuff. So subscribe, and thank you in advance for that. To better understand rental arbitrage, I want to talk to you about some of my most recent deals. I think this is important. You might still decide to buy a property, and that's totally fine, but I want you to know the mechanics at play. What rental arbitrage and what short-term rentals are very simply, or less simply, this. Any property in the short-term rental space is taking a property that's a long-term property, typically a normal piece of real estate, and they're repurposing it. Place is normally not furnished. The utilities aren't normally paid, right? You have to sign like a full-on lease and have a background check done. That's a normal long-term rent situation. So what we're doing is we're repurposing properties to operate differently. We're taking them out of real estate, essentially, and we're putting them in the hospitality space. Hotels are classified as a hospitality product, not as a real estate product, and all of the mechanisms are the same. We offer a furnished place that's clean. You can just drop your luggage. You can check in with the concierge. You can ask anybody questions. That hotel has to operate a certain way. When a guest leaves, they have to turn it over, make it ready for the next guest. They have to change their prices to always stay full. They might have to deal with angry guests and utilize customer service. There's all sorts of aspects that you would utilize as a short-term rental operator. This long-term property, if you own the property or do arbitrage or whatever, is going from the long-term market into the hospitality space. Now, what makes arbitrage a little compelling, let me look at a few deals. In Austin, Texas, we just picked up 11 apartments where our monthly rent is about $1,100 per apartment for 11 apartments. It's kind of fun. Now, we got a landlord to give us 10 weeks of rent for free and no move-in cost. The same landlord, we're working a deal right now that our leases start in 10 days, and our rents are going to be $1,300 a month, and we're going to get 8 weeks of rent for free with no moving cost. So our cost to start our leases for all 29 apartments are $0. Now, I did do a past video. Some of you who are fans of this channel might have saw that video where I talk about how one of my deals made over 1,000% ROI. That is this deal in Austin where we paid nothing to move in and we rented our furniture, or we're doing rent to own furniture. And so our staging costs, setup costs, everything to get a unit started was about $1,300 or less per door. And we're making $14,000 per year per door. $1,300 startup cost, $14,000 per year profit. You can do that math. So we're looking at a potential 1,000% ROI on these deals because we're getting free rent. We're doing rent to own furniture. But another deal I just did in Houston, we're looking at 40 doors. We're actually in the mid-staging process of 40 doors right now, where our furnishing was half with a contractor that does professional staging, and then half of them were done by ourselves. Our total cost to get started on these doors are probably about $5,500 or $6,000 per door total with labor out the door. So we're looking at about $200,000 to $240,000 in total startup costs for these 40 units. By doing it this way, we're going to save about $320 per month because we're not paying the furniture off in payments. We're not doing rent to own. So our operating costs will be lower. Now our ROI will be lower because we had to spend $5,000 or $6,000 instead of $1,200, but we're going to be more operationally scrappy. We're still getting free rent, which is very good. And this is a Western Highway 10 and Highway 6 area of Houston. And this is another spot in the world that we're doing it. We're in 11 cities, by the way, if you include Waco, which is a deal that we're about to strike. And this is working nearly everywhere. And even though Houston in 2014 was the one city I was in to say that they were giving away free rent at the time, when I'm looking at buildings in Philadelphia or Austin or Dallas or Waco or Houston, they're all willing to give us free rent. And some of these places are even starting to advertise free rent, which is a really good thing for you if you don't feel confident as a salesperson and don't want to try to have to influence the deal. They might just give you the free rent anyway. I do have other past videos where I specifically analyze buildings that I picked picked up in 2017, 2018. If you're really curious, I have videos on this channel of how we survived COVID and Airbnb canceling a ton of reservations in April. We had over 100 properties when COVID hit, and now 2022, we have 150. So if your concerns are that a bad economy will pull you out of the market and you'll lose a lot of money, I can tell you as a walking, talking testimonial that we're bigger now than prior to COVID. Every action has an equal reaction. Even though COVID drove down the market temporarily, you might have also saw on the news that there's what they called revenge travel, where people started to spend more money to travel, and now also it's still going on. People are spending more money on travel and tourism and experiences than they are on material things, because arguably people were just so fed up with being stuck at home alone with their TV that they want to go out and they want to see the world. They want to spend time with their friends. So travel is still really much a priority in our culture today, which is great for us as, accommodation providers, because we give the opportunity for people to have a place to stay when they travel. Now, if you do have a worry that hotels will somehow win their advantage back against short-term rental properties, I want you to consider this. When you pick up a short-term rental property, the minimum square foot of like a studio apartment is probably going to be 550 square foot or greater, where the minimum square foot of a hotel could probably be 275 square feet, 300 square feet. There's a huge difference to the minimum bar of quality there. Almost every single Airbnb that you could book is going to have a full-size kitchen. We're talking stove, full-size fridge, kitchen utensils so you can cook. And as the economy starts to get a little bit dark, as the recession starts to get a little bit scary, anybody staying for 5, 7, 10, 15 days in a city because they have to for work or they're relocating with their family, they're going to want the extra square footage of a place so their kids can sleep on the couch or on a rollaway bed instead of getting 2 hotel rooms, and you have to stay in some 200 square foot hotel room. It could be really, really stressful. So booking a Airbnb apartment is just the more viable option. And then the homemaker, the person who isn't going to work, can use the kitchen to cook meals for their kids, to cook meals for their husband or wife, and now everybody's saving money long-term by not being stuck eating out all the time. So when you think about the savings of a hotel on operational efficiency, you actually start to lose that on week-long or longer stays because people choose to make a home in a short-term rental and choose to cook and save money through their kitchen expenses. Now, I have a lot of videos on how to really, really, really get good at this, and I don't want to toot that horn too much. If you have friends that you've been considering starting a business and real estate is something that you've been looking at, I really encourage you to take a look at short-term rentals as a way that you can truly make some money. I've made over $10 million on the Airbnb platform alone, and we have other platforms like VRBO and Booking.com and direct bookings that we've made money on as well. And I haven't even tallied that up because I actually don't care about money. This channel will always be free. This will always be a resource to you, and that means I'm welcoming you to put questions in the comments. Share this video with your friends. See if this fits for you. Ask me some questions. I have a free Facebook group with 40,000 plus Airbnb hosts that are, a lot of them are nerdy, just like me, and are so happy to help and answer your questions too. Also free. How cool is that? I'm not going to drone on too much. I'm going to enjoy the rest of my night. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I'll see you on the other side.